Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. My name is Dabney, and today we are going to be talking about the quality of time astrologically with Uranus at the 29th degree of Taurus, just about to go into Gemini on July 4th. So, question that I get often, why is this happening? I get that in readings often. And then when will it be over? I feel more comfortable talking about the first part, even though I know everyone would like to know about the second part. I am not a predictive astrologer per se, but I can tell you that we are going to be dealing with a lot of these energies for many years to come. And I think having an understanding of what this year has been about and the remaining second half of this year, what our opportunities are, both on a collective and on a personal level. So if that's content you're interested in, I hope you stick around. What we do on this channel is we look at the planetary energy, we look at what's going on above in the cosmos, and we help bring that energy down here, try to make sense of it so we can live a more peace-filled and conscious life down here on planet Earth. So for the month of July, which is my birthday month, I am going to take my beginner foundations astrology course and I'm going to slash it in half. It's going to be $39. It will just be the recorded version. There will not be any lives, but it will be all of the same material that people got that took it and had such good feedback. So I will be offering the class again in the fall before I launch my transits class in the winter. But for now, just for the month of July, it is going to be $39. And there's a lot of really good material there. And so if you've ever wanted to learn astrology, please check that out. The link is in the description below. Also, I'm going to be speaking at the Radiant Astrology Current Astrology Zeitgeist Summit along with 20 other astrologers. So I'm going to put a link to that as well. So that is actually free. You can purchase the recordings, but it's a summit that you can join for free. So I'm not very good at remembering to say these things, but I have to say them because this is starting to be how I make a living. So if you've ever wanted to learn astrology, take my foundations course. It will not be this cheap again for quite some time. Okay, let's start with the fact that Uranus is at the 29th degree of Taurus. Uranus has been in Taurus, I believe, since 2018. And on Friday, later in the day, it's going to go into the sign of Gemini. So that means we are really at that what's called anaretic degree, right? And we've talked about this before, that when you get to the final degree of any, especially outer planet, because the outer planets move slower, there really is something that you have to learn. There is something that it's like kind of this final gasp of energy where it's like, okay, but this is the last time I'm going to be in this sign for a really long time. And so I've got to make the most of it. And so it can be kind of dramatic. It can be a crisis point. So the interesting thing about 2025 is we've had all of these planetary energies switching over. So Pluto switched over in 2024, at the very end of 2024, into Aquarius, and it's there now permanently. So there's no retrograde motion for Pluto. But the other outer planets, there is kind of a retrograde. So we are about to enter in July. The Neptune is going retrograde. Saturn is going retrograde. So, we've talked about how Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, we talked about what that is all about versus Neptune and Saturn in Aries. And there's a lot of delusion and, we talked about what that, and so I've got videos galore about that. So I don't want to make this too long. So you could kind of go back and look at those videos about Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. And then Neptune and Saturn in Aries. I've done videos on that as well. What I think is important here to understand is this fall, those things are going back. And we're kind of getting to an echo. of what led up to the kind of current crisis points we're in. And it won't fully be until 2026 that all of the outer planets are moving forward direct and not retracing their steps into these new signs. Okay, so right now, 2025 has really been a preview of sorts of what 2026 will be. But there is this opportunity to kind of see things differently. When Neptune goes retrograde, we get the opportunity to say, okay, what was I not seeing clearly? Where was I not empathetic enough? Where did I, kind of get it wrong? And it's sort of your last opportunity to get it right. Okay, this video is about Uranus. So I want to just lay that groundwork because Uranus is currently at 29 degrees. I wrote down the dates here. Uranus is going to enter Gemini on July 7th. It'll start going retrograde September 6th, and it'll go back into Taurus on November 7th. So it's going to hit that 29 Taurus again on November 7th. So it's going to kind of go back. And then it really won't go forward permanently or like until 2033 in the sign of Gemini until April 26, 2026. Okay? So sort of digest what that means. I know that that's a lot of information, but the big thing I want you to realize is like we have all these signs flipping over this year, but then they're going back. And it's going to be a retread. But retreads tend to be opportunities to examine what you've done in the past to potentially kind of clean it up and do it right before it finally moves forward and then it's just gas, to the floor. Okay. So what is Uranus? Uranus is the awakener, for lack of a better word. So I wrote a few notes here, so if I look down, forgive me. Uranus uses shocks to shake us into awareness of where we are off base, where we are not on the right path. So you can have a Uranian transit that feels just somewhat opportunistic. So some examples of Uranus's, awakening, shocking things that can happen. And it's a spectrum, right? So, you can get diagnosed with a terminal disease. That is an awakening that you have to take your life seriously. You could get in a car accident. You could lose a loved one. Then, you could lose your job. It does matter where Uranus is in the chart. That will give you clues. You could suddenly realize, you wake up one day and you've had a crisis of faith and you realize everything you've believed in, you can no longer believe in because the pastor at your church was caught with child porn or something horrible like that, right? So keeping all of that sort of thing in mind, there's also awakenings like you can win the lottery. You could get an inheritance. You could suddenly find that your child is, come out of the closet and is engaged to someone. So you see that there's like a spectrum of awakening things. But the thing to understand about Uranus is its uncertainty. You can't predict Uranus. It can be very destabilizing. Uranus can usher in some form of chaos where you're just thrown off center. But it can also be, the pain of the caterpillar in the chrysalis wanting to emerge as a butterfly. So really the Uranus shocks are an awakening to your soul, oftentimes through pain and loss. To be honest with you, it can very much oftentimes, especially on a collective level, occur very painful situations where we have to kind of be thrown back on our heels enough to say, like, what is worth this? What's the meaning of this? Why is this happening? But the whole point is to get you back on the right track. So Uranus is in Taurus. Uranus doesn't love to be in Taurus. Uranus likes to shake things up. Uranus likes bold, fast action. It's lightning strikes. Taurus wants safety, security. Taurus is about money. It's about resources. It's about food. It's about land. It's about the earth. It's about animals. So, we've seen, I think in our lifetime, a great acceleration since Uranus has been in Taurus of climate emergencies. That's when really like everyone kind of woke up and was like, oh, maybe this isn't so good. We've also seen like the rise of cryptocurrency, which is like a change in the financial system. So, but we've also seen like kind of the Taurian like hoarding of money, right? With the wealth inequality and these, tax cuts for wealthy people, that is just a redistribution of wealth to the highest echelon of elites. Okay. So this week, we are seeing this, play out in real time. I do believe, I hope I'm wrong. Everyone, I hope I'm wrong, but pretty much the writing's on the wall that this bill is going to pass. This bill is going to hurt a lot of people. We don't know exactly who it's going to hurt. But it won't be wealthy people. They're the ones who stand to benefit the most. We don't know the exact damage that it's going to do in people's lives, but the whole point of the Medicaid cuts, the way they're doing it, is to add in a bunch of bureaucracy to make it virtually impossible for people to continue to reapply. So there's just like, through attrition, a lot of people are going to lose their health care. That's what happened in Georgia when they did something similar. Also, when you have a lot of elderly people, as we all know, or many of you may know, I take care of my mom, and it's very labor intensive. She has Parkinson's and a lot of cognitive issues, and it is a severe drain on my time, because I don't just get to bring her to the doctor. Like, I have to fill out paperwork for every single doctor, and we have to go to, anyway, you all live it too. So you know what I'm talking about. But the point is, there's no way she could do that herself. Like, there's no way she could do what I do for her. Like, I've definitely been keeping her alive for years, because even living in an assisted living or a nursing home, they don't really help. So, you're a little bit on your own if you don't have someone advocating for you. So, how do you navigate this? And the big question, why is this happening? So I think that there's a soul crisis going on in this world. And I don't think it's just in the US, but we are the focal point, and our chart, our natal, the Sibley chart, is being activated right now quite a bit. We're about to get into our Uranus return to the Sibley chart, and I'll do a full video about that. But that'll happen in 2026. And so this isn't so much about Uranus going into Gemini. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos about that. I'm interviewing someone today named Shannon Cunningham, who's amazing, from Astrology. So we're going to do a lot of talking about Uranus going to Gemini. But what I want to talk about is kind of the soul and the soul sickness. And in times of crisis and these kind of powerful Uranian shocks to the system, it's often a way to get your soul to awaken. So I'm going to use a little bit of a privileged example here. So for those of you that are going to give me a hard time about being privileged, I recognize my privilege, and I also recognize simultaneously that this privilege has only been around for less than a decade. I grew up very poor, poverty level with a lot of abuse, and by the grace of God, things went my way. I worked very hard, and I got to a place where I get to enjoy this beautiful home, and I do know that I have a tremendous amount of privilege, so I do not take that for granted. I want to say that. And I want to tell this story because it, to me, was, I think, a good metaphor or illustration of what I'm trying to talk about. So it's been a stressful few weeks. I was doing a lot of traveling, and my son was graduating from middle school, and, just very much life things. My mother was sick. I had a pet that was sick, just a lot of these kind of things that just we all deal with, right? But I'm a very sensitive person, lots of Cancer energy, and the contraction in my body was real. I also have something called lipedema, which is a lymphatic disorder, which means that I retain fluid and my lymphatic system doesn't work the way other people's does. And so, 2 weeks of international travel, I've not been working out. I've not been using my compression pump, all these things that I normally do to just kind of keep myself healthy. My body really, my legs look like tree trunks when I got home. And I was just like, oh, I've got to do something. So I went and got a lymphatic massage and a deep tissue massage. So there's the privilege part. I realize I am privileged. But what I'm going to say is I was holding on. My body was holding all this water, holding all this tension. It was just holding on, but I was fine. I was getting on. I was plowing through, I was just kind of doing my life. I got this massage and, she worked out the knots in my back, and then she did some lymphatic drainage, and it released all these toxic waste into my body. And I got really sick. I'm still kind of, have a sore throat and so I think that's where we're at is what is happening now has been building up for a really long time. This current situation where people are feeling pressed to pass a bill that is going to harm people and they know better, and all these sort of things, all of the things that people know better. This is all kind of the manifestation of what had come before. And what had come before was a lot of just pushing through, tightness. I got to travel. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to get this done. I got to do that. And then I feel the election was that kind of release where it's now the toxins are free. They're free roaming around my body and roaming around our country. And that to me was a good metaphor for the Uranus at 29 degrees, which is I feel sick. My throat hurts. Last night I went to bed at 7 p.m. I'm tired. I'm sick. I don't want to do this anymore. That's the why is this happening? But the why this is happening is because we've allowed our souls to go dormant. We've pushed through. We've been in survival mode for so long that we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our gifts. The people that, ushered this chaos into our worlds are so detached from their soul. They're so detached from their personal, what's the right word I'm looking for? Their purpose. They've lost all purpose. And if you don't know why you're here and you don't have something you're offering back to the world, and you're just you have no, you're just so out of touch with your body and your soul, then it's much easier to blame someone else because you're unhappy. And someone tells you this is what, I'm going to fix it. Great. You fix it. You take care of it. You get those people out of here. Whatever. Cut waste, fraud, and abuse, right? These lies are all a cop-out. They're the easy way out because it's too painful to look at what's really, really hurting our souls, where we really are hurt. So it's much easier to not get that deep tissue lymphatic work because then I don't feel sick, but it had to come out. It has to go somewhere so I can heal and I can work through it. And then I'm healthier. And that's, I think, where we're at here. So if you even just want to go back to COVID, Okay. This I believe has been going on for decades, this buildup of like detachment from our soul. But let's just go back to COVID, where it became incredibly obvious that people were just going down crazy rabbit holes, and we lost people that were loved ones to conspiracy theories and just the easy way out. People didn't want to feel the pain and loss of what they were experiencing and seeing around them. They didn't want to deal with the fear. And so we're now in this world where we're about to enter a new world. So like, let's consider that as the old world, okay? And that old world was kind of toxic. And even if we felt like we were doing okay, there was way too many of us that were not. And so now we're in the darkness because we don't know what's going to happen. Like, all we know is like all these scary things are occurring and we're fighting back, but like no one's listening, and it doesn't feel like anyone in leadership has our back, and it just feels like there's cowardice all around. And all of this kind of, as I said before, the words, for Uranus, chaos, destabilization, uncertainty. We're in that darkness, and that's 29 Taurus, the body. In many ways, the soul, because we are all connected to the earth. Climate change is real and terrifying, and you can't bombard people with dystopian messages and expect them to, they either go into fear or they go into denial. The vast majority of people, okay, because they feel helpless. So we have a new world on the horizon. I do want to let you know that I genuinely believe the world is not going to end. I genuinely want you to know that all of these outer planet shifts are incredibly creative. I find Aquarius to be very creative. It's the flip. It's the polarity of Leo. It's a different kind of creativity. It's the creativity of, advancing society. It is the creativity of, solutions for that benefit everyone. Okay, so that's Pluto and Aquarius. Neptune and Saturn in Aries. Aries is the creativity of survival. It's a cardinal sign, and it wants action. So, creativity is creating something new that has not been, ever done before. That's what, the definition of creative. Sometimes, like, I tell people to tap into their creativity and they think that I mean, like, paint a Picasso. That's not necessarily, like, if you are interested in painting, great, but it doesn't have to be that. There's lots of different ways to be creative, and it means taking action and manifesting something new into this world, which Aries can do. And then we have the creativity of Uranus and Gemini. So Uranus is about to go into Gemini. So we're at that anaretic point, that closing point where there's like a little bit of a tantrum of the old, okay? Taurus can be kind of stodgy. Again, if you're a Taurus, please know I'm talking collectively, not personally, okay? But collectively, there's a conservatism, there's a stodginess, there's a stuckness with Taurus. So Uranus and Taurus has been like in tar. It has not been able to like break free. Suddenly it's gonna like whoosh, break free in Gemini, because Gemini has all these ideas. Now, Gemini is not always amazing at manifesting things. They just have like pop off with amazing ideas. But Uranus can bring things to fruition and help us get back on the right path. And so I guess the encouraging thing that I want you to know is we are being tasked with leaning into this chaos to some degree and finding our own inner creativity. It's almost like, like when you're like on a, like whirling around, the center is the place that feels the least motion sickness. It's like there's going to be a lot of whirling energy. There's going to be new technologies. There's going to be potentially chaos around finances as it goes from Taurus into Gemini, where there's all sorts of like new ideas about what we should be doing. Transportation, there's going to be different things and around boundaries. So there's going to be a lot of change. And so in the midst of the change that's going to come at us fast, go into your center, go into your soul, go into your creativity. That's what you're being tasked to do right now on a personal level. So let's say, this Uranus is going to be conjunct Venus. So, again, I don't like to make predictions because they can be true sometimes and sometimes they're not, because it's not an exact science. Really, it's an intuitive science, at least for me. There are some astrologers who maybe they're spot on. I've predicted things that have happened and I've predicted things that haven't happened, in my own life. So one of the things that I will tell you is that Venus and Uranus are conjunct, so sitting next to each other in the sky right now at this last degree of Taurus. So that would indicate some big shock to finances or in your personal life, to your relationships, or it could be to, your aesthetic. You decide you want to dye your hair purple, right? Whatever. Okay. But on a collective level, there could be a shock to the financial system. And that could just be this bill passing. That could be the signing of this bill where we don't feel the repercussions yet, but we feel it energetically. Right. So Medicaid is not going to be cut till 2027 or 2028. So, people have time to figure things out. Not much time. And like I said, with my mother, what's she going to do? Right. And I don't think my mother's going to be kicked off of Medicaid because she's on Medicare and she's older. So, right. But those people that are in that situation, there is at least some time to process and plan. However, the shock is to the system. It's energetic. It's like the signing of the pen kind of thing on the birthday of the United States. And so that's kind of what I think for this country that will be about, where it's this is a whole new world. It's a new dawning. This is going to have deep repercussions. It's going to have deep repercussions also with immigration. The thing that people are not talking about is, which in many ways I think is going to impact more people, is the acceleration. I read with the information, Judd Legum, he put out a thing what does this bill do? And one of the things is it funds ICE. More money will be put into ICE detention centers and hiring than in our federal prison bureau system. And there will be more ICE agents than FBI agents. So if we really think about that, think of the images that we've been seeing with masked men. Now they're talking about denaturalizing people. Where does it end? Right? So that's the thing is now they'll have the resources. They're not funding more judges to, give due process and, get through these immigration cases to take it out and get people out of here. They're just funding the prisons. So, and you if you want to, any sort of indication that there's a sickness in our society, look at the people laughing about alligator Alcatraz and buying merchandise. I mean, that's a soul sickness. You're so detached from your soul. I can't think that this many people in our society are sociopaths. I do believe many of them leading our country are. But I think there's just a soul sickness where people are so cut off from their emotional world and what they're really here to do, what their unique gift and purpose is, that they're in their own personal hell. I mean, that seems hellacious to be laughing at other people suffering in that way. So why is this happening? I think it's happening to shock us into waking up. It's an awakening. And I know a lot of us already are awakening in our own personal way, but there's always more we can do. There's always more healing. We're never fully healed or whole. And I wish I could reach more people that needed to hear this message. But at least I want to put out there why I think this is happening. Now, the how long will it last phase, I can tell you Gemini, Uranus is in Gemini till 2033. I don't think it's going to be till 2033, but I think we're in for a lot of awakenings and falling back on ourselves for several years. I don't think that there's going to be an expedient end to any of this, but my hope is that through the sacrifices and pain and suffering that are happening anyway, there are some people that finally like open their eyes and like reflect on what it means to be human and the gift that that is, and how they can bring something positive into the world instead of just spewing hatred. So this week, possibly a little stressful financially, could be stressful in your relationships, but it also is kind of like this last gasp before we like enter into something new. And keep in mind, it's just a preview of the new, because it's not until April that Uranus finally goes into Gemini. So this whole period is kind of that darkness where we have to feel our way around, but in the darkness is where we can access our soul the greatest. So I hope that this is a helpful message. As always, there is a reason and a season for it all. The universe is conspiring to help you, and I'm right here with you. I'm right here with you all. And the good news is I'm starting to feel better today. My chicken is on the mend and doing well. And there's, the sun is shining. So, all right, until next time, stargazers.